This theory really made me think. This theory of George Soros, one of the best investors that's ever lived, if you look at simply just the monetary gains that he has made, right? There are controversies around him, especially in the political realm, how he's influencing external democracies, etc. Let's not get into that. Let's simply just look at his success, right? At how he made all of his money. Now, there is a very good theory that I think is pretty groundbreaking that not a lot of people talk about, even though George Soros has written books about it. But nowadays, right, it's simply just conspiracy theories. Let's look at his theory. And the best theory, I think, that he has published is the theory of reflexivity. And I want to share two quotes around this theory so that I can properly convey this, right? The first quote is, "Perception affects prices, and prices affect perceptions." So you've got a reflexive loop here. Now, what does this mean? It means the following. Fundamental analysis seeks to establish how underlying values are reflected in prices. Okay, so you simply just try to find out what is that thing worth. Whereas the theory of reflexivity shows how prices can influence the underlying value. So what does that mean? It means that the underlying value of something changes when its perception changes, when its price goes up. So where does this apply? It applies, for example, for Bitcoin. Imagine Bitcoin nowadays only had 1,000 wallets and only was at 10 cents. How much of a savings vehicle would Bitcoin be? How much would you really be safe into pouring a lot of investment money into it? It's very unlikely, right? With increased value, with increased adoption, network effects get established. So even though the technology itself is exactly the same, simply by an increased price, Bitcoin itself becomes more valuable. So the price itself changes the underlying value of a Bitcoin. And that explains why Bitcoin doesn't crash from 20K to $10, why it only crashes relatively to its top, maybe 80% or so, why there is a floor in the end. People continue to accumulate. Now there's a second effect here. The second effect is that as the price increases, there are more miners joining the network. Because now as price goes up, mining becomes more profitable. And so as mining becomes more profitable, you want to get more share, you can invest more electricity into mining. And so the network itself becomes more robust against hacks, right? The more people mine Bitcoin, the more resources you will need for this 51% attack. So this is an interesting loop, right? You can simply just by changing the perception, there we go. Simply by changing the perception about something, you can influence the price because some people might be buying something. And because of that, the underlying value can go up because now there will be more miners that mine it, for example. Or now there will be more confidence into using Bitcoin as a savings vehicle and into holding it over many, many years, even across cycles, so without riding those waves. So this is an example of reflexivity that I think can be applied probably to many other assets as well. You can probably also apply this to, for example, property, right? So you could either just think of property as, okay, this is whatever kind of future rents I can extract from this. This is my value right now. But you could also think of it as when the price of a property itself increases, its utility increases as well. Because now, for example, you can borrow more money against it, right? You suddenly have more financial freedom, so to speak. Of course, should you borrow against your house? It depends, right? But at least you've got suddenly more access. And that access itself might have value to you as well. So there's really a reflexive loop. It's not just we've got that thing, and that thing is worth something, and we simply have to determine the price of that something, what's the underlying value of it. No, it's different, it's more complex. There is obviously this underlying value, but even when the price shoots up, that underlying value might also go up. It might even go up more than the price itself, right? So let's say the price goes up by 50%. Maybe the underlying value doesn't just go up by 10 or 20%, it could even go up by more than 50%. And this is what I think happened in the early days of Bitcoin, right? In the early days of Bitcoin, you saw a doubling of the price, but now the volatility, now the utility of Bitcoin went up more. It went up more because now it became safer of a hedge against, say, stock markets. You also see how the price swings itself might have an impact on the value of Bitcoin. When the price swings itself are somewhat decoupled from the rest of finance, suddenly you've got a hedge as a portfolio diversifier. So price itself manifests itself as a component of the underlying value. It doesn't mean that whatever goes up suddenly has the value that's equal to that price increase, right? Just because baseball cards are worth $20,000 doesn't mean that it's really worth $20,000. But it is worth thinking about how price can change the utility of an underlying asset, how it can change the value of an underlying asset. Now, I have made a similar video around what Warren Buffett said around value creation. So he said, for example, that value is what you get and price is what you pay, right? This the standard idea without reflexivity. But there is also an issue here when you simply just look at things like gold and Bitcoin. So that video comes directly after that. So if you're interested in that, right, feel free to simply just click over here. Right? So thanks for watching this and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.